and I want to thank you all for attending the 2017 Workers Memorial Ceremony. The Oregon AFL-CIO is committed to the safety and well-being of all working people in Oregon. We are joined today by representatives of the Governor's Office, the Oregon Legislature, and Oregon OSHA. Today we mourn those Oregonians who died on the job in 2016. Through our mourning, we commit ourselves to make sure Oregon workers have the right gear, the right training, and the right precautions to do their jobs as safely as possible. We commit ourselves to prevent needless deaths, to prevent needless sorrow, and to make sure every worker returns home every day. Too many workers are killed on the job, thousands are injured each year, and the days and years cut off from workers' lives due to occupational diseases are immeasurable. This year, we read a longer list of names. Those names are people with families, with communities, and their abrupt absence cannot be overstated. We must work harder for a safer Oregon so that one day there are no names to read and every worker returns home safely. It is now my honor to introduce Alana Purtle-Guinea from the office of Governor Kate Brown to read a proclamation.
I'm going to read a proclamation signed by Governor Brown calling on Oregonians to remember the workers today who have passed away on the job in the past year. Annually, we gather and discuss the numbers, and the numbers go up and the numbers go down, but those numbers aren't just statistics, they are people. They are Oregonians, and they are coworkers and friends and families who are left behind. And it's clear that our numbers trend in Oregon is not headed down at the speed that we need. The trend is not right. On average each year, too many families are affected. We know that workers must speak up, we know that the state must do more, and we know that employers must step up. Whereas every year, tens of thousands of American workers are killed by workplace injuries and occupational disease, and whereas tens of thousands more are permanently disabled and millions are injured, and whereas 66 people died on the job or from injuries sustained while working in Oregon in 2016, and whereas by organizing Workers' Memorial Day on April 28th, a day chosen by the unions of the AFL-CIO as a day to remember the victims of workplace injuries and disease, renewing efforts to seek stronger safety and health protection, better standards and enforcement, and fair and just compensation, and rededicating ourselves to improving safety and health in every American workplace. Concerned Americans are determined to prevent these tragedies in the future. Now therefore, Governor Kate Brown of the state of Oregon has proclaimed April 28, 2017 to be Workers' Memorial Day in Oregon and has encouraged all Oregonians to join in this observance.
Thank you, Alana. Reverend Richard Davis from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem will now deliver the invocation and lead us in a moment of silence for the fallen.
Let us join our hearts and minds together in a spirit of prayer. O God of all times and places and people, God of peace and justice and compassion, who call us all to lives of meaning and purpose, may we tune our hearts and minds to your presence within us and among us, that we may feel empowered to meet with courage and resolve the challenges and opportunities that lie before us. Today we are gathered to remember and honor those workers whose lives were lost on the many jobs which they did to serve the common good. Hard jobs, dangerous jobs, and oftentimes too low paying. Too often we take for granted all those who put their lives at risk to do essential work. Today we are humbly and sadly mindful of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, whose lives were tragically ended on the job, and whose families have since known shock and grief and heartbreak. Today our hearts especially go out to those here who have known such loss. May we remember too, in a spirit of gratitude, those brave souls who came before us, who fought against powerful interests in their time, sometimes sacrificing their very lives for the right of workers to join together in collective bargaining to promote their legitimate rights for living wages and safe and humane working conditions. May we find inspiration in their example in our own challenging times. May we thirst for justice and compassion and equity in society, and may we labor together to deconstruct the human-made hells that are created by greed and indifference and intolerance in our world. May we strengthen our efforts to protect those who work in dangerous conditions. May we recognize the holy power that lies within us, individually and collectively, to bring about great good in our world, and may we use that power to do so. Amen. And now let us observe a moment's silence, reflecting upon the names on this list, all those who have died in this past year, reflecting on their sacrifice, reflecting on the love that is held for them now. May they rest in peace, and amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Joining us today to read the names of the fallen workers in 2016 is State Representative Barbara Smith Warner.
Thank you all for being here. Angela Abernathy, Dion Abrams, Joseph Adams, Anali Aguilar Gaona, Leland Ayer, Jerry Barkley, John Beckman, John Bliley, Jerry Brosnan, Harold Burns, Nick Caldwell, Luis Camano Morales, Raimundo Cardoso, Daniel Chico Hernandez, Patrick Corley, Travis Cornielson, James Crow, Linda Cushing, Merrill Damaris, Donovan Farreld, Ronald Fisher, Randy Fox, David Freo, Levi Gallo Camacho, Pedro Herrera Galvan, David Gilbreth, Bradley Goad, Jason Gooding, William Gross, Billy Herndon, Melissa Hers, Michael Holland, Gregory Hollis, Milton Kowaleski, Marilyn Manriquez Gutierrez, Daniel Matlock, Joshua McGraw, Lucas McNeil, Jimmy Meadows, Mitra Marabati, Dwayne Nelson, Neil Nightingale, Igor Nikolaichuk, Richard Oswald, Marcus Payne, Patrick P.J. Patterson, Joshua Paulus, Benjamin Rafferty, Travis Rote, Luis Salas Ramirez, Guy Simmer, Alan Smith, Kevin Smith, Parrish Spiegel, Jerry Sramrek, Charles Stadelli, Blaine Steinmetz, Taufi Telaula, Michelle Tarwater, Thad Taylor, Anthony Thorne, Jose Torres Hermosillo, Milton Vaughn, Maria Villa, Robert Webb.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Michael Wood. Michael is the administrator of Oregon OSHA.
Thank you. I welcome the opportunity to speak to you all gathered here today, although of course I do not welcome the reason why we are gathered. Many of you, like me, work in one way or another in the system that is intended to prevent these tragedies. Others of you work in the system that is designed to deal with the consequences of injury, illness, and death in the workplace. Many of you are co-workers of those who have lost their lives. Others of you are family and friends. And to all of you, I say that I wish I had answers. I wish that I could offer an explanation, but I cannot. I have stood before gatherings such as this year after year, and they don't get any easier. The words don't come more smoothly. The answers aren't any clearer. What I know is that we must do better. What I know is that these are not just names on a page, that they certainly aren't statistics, that they aren't just lists, that they're people. What I know is that each one of the names that we heard read a moment ago represents a person with a story, with a tale to tell. And I know that I don't know that story, that I don't know that tale. And what saddens me and angers me and frustrates me is that I realize that even those of you who are their closest friends and family don't know the full story. Because that story, that tale, was cut short by a death in the workplace. That's what each of these names is. A tale cut short. A story ended before its time. A life ended before it had run its allotted course. And whatever the specifics, it is someone who did not get the chance to spend their full life with their friends and with their family, to realize all their dreams, to chase all their futures. And that is a tragedy. And there is nothing in our workplace, and there is nothing in our economy, and there is nothing in our pursuit of gain that justifies that loss. We can do nothing but stand with you and grieve with you and look toward the future and rededicate ourselves to making that list shorter and shorter toward that day when there is no list. And sadly, we know already that that will not be next year, because we know that lives have been lost this year. What we can do is promise to work harder, to struggle against injustice, to struggle against risk, to fight to end those things that cause death in our workplaces, so that everybody, so that every man and woman working in the state of Oregon has the opportunity to go home, not only at the end of each day, but at the end of a working lifetime, to go home to friends and family, to pursue their hopes and dreams. It will not be easy. We will face more losses and more failures along the way, but we cannot turn away because the price is too great. And so we must fight on. In the words of Mother Jones that have become a slogan for Worker Memorial Day, I invite all of you to indeed mourn the dead, but fight like hell for the living. Let us go forward in that spirit.
Thank you, Michael. I hope that one day soon we have no names to read on this day. Until then, we'll remain committed to advocating for the safety of all workers. Until then, we'll gather on April 28th in services like this across the country to call for safer workplaces. We must continue our work because everyone deserves to have safety and protections on the job. Anything less is unacceptable. Thank you so much for attending today.